Hi, welcome to this lesson. So we're going to continue on with your for loops in this particular lesson. So we're going to be looking at different ways that you can write your for loops. Okay, this is the basic syntax, right? But you can modify it in ways you want. You can go without initialization. Initialization is not compulsory inside of your for loop. Okay. For example, you can do your initialization beforehand like this and just let go of this and just have a semicolon like this. You can do that. And as I told you before, the space is not compulsory. It can either be there or not be there. That's not a problem at all. So that's up to you. But the semicolon is compulsory. So the space is not compulsory, but the semicolon has to be there. Okay. So that's that. So you can go without your initialization inside of your for loop if that's what you need, but there should be some variable here, some variable. Otherwise, what would you use for your condition? So you have to create some variable, but you cannot use it here. And also, you can initialize more than one variables if you want. For example, I can do it like this. Let I is equal to 1, okay, and then comma. So I can say let I is equal to 1 and then comma sum is equal to 0. Like this, I can do it like this. So I can assign two variables, but condition is always going to be only one. But I can give you can give multiple conditions if that's what you want as well. So both the conditions have to be true. You can give an and in here like that, okay. But you can assign two values if that's what you want. And then what else? I can do it I can do it like this. So let me give you an example. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sum of numbers from 1 to 5. That's what I'm going to get. Okay, so for that, I'm going to assign a variable I is equal to 1, and also I'm going to create another variable sum which has the value 0 for now, and I can just say sum plus equal to I like this. So what will happen in every iteration is in iteration 1 I is equal to 1. Sum is always going to be sum is at the start it's going to be 0, but it'll keep changing, right? So is 1 is less than or equal to 2, true, and immediately what will happen is instead of console.log it'll do sum is equal to 0. Right now sum is 0, right? 0 plus 1, which is 1. Okay, so now the sum value would be 1. Okay, and then for the second one, instead of console.log it'll do sum is equal to sum was already 1, right? So 1 plus 2, which is 3, like that. So now sum value is 3. And then for iteration 3, what will happen is sum is equal to 3 plus 3, which is 6. For iteration 4, what will happen is sum is equal to 6 plus 4, which is 10. Okay, because I is 4 now. And for iteration 5, what will happen is sum is equal to 10 plus 5, which is 15, like this. So that's it. So finally, after the sum value is calculated, once it comes out, once it comes out, I can do a console.log of sum, but that will not work because if you declare your sum in here, you have to use it in here. So instead of that, what I can do is I can declare sum and I in here like this, or I'll just declare sum and I. Okay, just like this, I can just declare, and in here, instead of declaring it, I'll just initialize like I is equal to 1 and sum is equal to 1. So these become global variables which can be used anywhere, not just inside of your loop. So these are variables that can be used anywhere else. Otherwise, if I declare it inside of here, I'll show you what happens. See? Sum is not defined. It will say sum is not defined because sum was declared inside of this loop, and so outside of the loop your browser can't reach for something that was created inside of the loop. Okay, so that's why I can just declare it outside of the loop and then just assign it inside of the loop. If I do it like that, see, I'm going to get console.log, which is 15. Okay, so that's one thing that you can do. You can forego initialization if that's what you want, because you can do initialization before, and you can use multiple, you can assign multiple numbers like this. So you can look at the sum of numbers by this particular code. Okay, and also the conditional statements are optional too. Okay, if you don't want to use it, then you don't have to use it. If you don't want to use conditional statement, you can just forego the conditional statement like this. It'll still work. You can just give two semicolons like this to indicate that there was something supposed to be there. But what will happen is you'll create a non-ending loop. That'll what happen. Okay, so you'll create a non-ending loop that just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. And it just never stops, because there's no condition that can not false. Your condition is never going to become false, so it's never going to come out of the loop, right? Only if it became 6 did it come out of the loop. But if there's no condition statement, it's just never going to come out of the loop, and that's it. It's just going to be non-ending. If I do a console.log of I or something like that, so every time it gets iterated, I get my I listed in my console, something like that. If I refresh, let's see what happens. It doesn't even run. Do you see? It just keeps going like this. It's at 25. It's 597 right now. Your see, it's 3883. Your computer is going to break if it keeps doing like that. Okay, so I'll just pause the video and close this, so I can stop this execution. Okay, I stopped executing it by closing it. Now I think I'm going to not get a problem. So that's the thing. That's a problem with your for loop. If you don't give a condition statement, it's going to create a non-ending loop that's going to break your computer or your browser. Okay, so we look at the break statements, just like the break statements we saw in your switch statement. We'll look at break statements in a future lesson. So if you're not giving a condition in here, you can give a break inside of it with some condition, with an if condition or something. You can give a break inside of it. So it does stop. It does stop at a point. Okay, so you don't end up with it's called an infinite loop, so you don't end up with an infinite loop like that. Okay, so you can do something like that. Okay, and now the statement 3, well, the statement 3, it can go, you can go without your statement 3 inside of here as well. Just give the semicolon. Always give semicolon, because your for loops should have 2 semicolons like this. Okay, but you can go without your I++ as well. Say, okay, if you do that, but there should be an increment. Otherwise, it's just, again, it's going to be a non-ending. It's going to be an infinite loop, because I is going to keep being 1. And if you, let me just remove all of this, I is always going to be 1. And if I don't give an I++ in here, it's just going to log 1 into the console again and again and again and again, and it's going to be an infinite loop. So if you are going without your I++ in here, then make sure that you have it somewhere else. So what I do is I'd create something like this. Okay, I'd give my I++ after all of my statements have been executed in my iteration. So once it's iterated, and then I'll give my I++. That's what's going to happen anyway. Your statements are going to be executed first, and then that's when your I++ is going to be executed. So why not just write it like this? So you can do that as well if that's what you want. But don't go without having it at all. You're going to create another infinite loop if you do that. Okay, so that's your 2. Okay, it doesn't just have to be an increment statement. It can also be a decrement statement if that's what you want. For example, I can start I with 5, and I can say as long as I is greater than or equal to 1. Like that, I can do it like that. I can give a condition that says as long as I is greater than or equal to 1, then execute the statement and keep executing it until the console is until the statement is false. And so so what will happen now is first it'll be 5, and then it'll give 5 in here, it'll go back, it'll be minus I minus minus, so it'll become 4, and then 3, and then 2, and then 1, and then that'll be the last of it. After that it'll become 0. So 0 is not greater than 1, so it'll stop there. Okay, it's not greater than or equal to 1, right? Okay, so if I go look at the output, there you go, 5 first, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, like that. So that's how your statements are going to get executed. Okay, so if you refresh, you always notice that there's a delay before you get your output. That's because your loop is running. So that's how it happens. Okay, so you can give increment or decrement and all of those things. So we've looked at all of the things that are needed in your for loop. Okay, so that's it for your for loop lesson. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.